Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Leslie Hammock, who's the founder of Retire by Design, and we'll be talking about the risks of retirement. Leslie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, I'm looking forward to talking with you because I know that sometimes people don't like to hear negative things like risks in anything. But if we know some of the risk of retirement, then we can be prepared and put some things in place. So I know that I want to learn from what your years of experience have provided that you provide to your clients. But before we dive into that, give us a little bit of your background and story and how did you get into the financial services industry?
Well, it started on a sad note. My father, at age 50, was killed by a drunk driver when I was in college. But we were fortunate enough that he had a good advisor, especially on the estate planning side of the equation and life insurance side of the equation. And it made a big impression on me. And I felt like it was a noble business to go into. So I started my career on the insurance side of the equation with Mass Mutual right out of college, and spent about 13 years with them before I broke off and went independent and spread out and went back to school, so to speak, and got additional licenses for fee-based planning and assets under management, as well as my insurance and estate planning background.
And then how long have you been in the industry?
A little over 40 years. As I said, started right out of college.
Wow. That's been a minute or two. And I know you've seen a lot of trends and changes. I think it's really neat that you got into the industry because you saw something that happened and your parents were protected. And so you got into that side of the business, the insurance side. And then as time went by, you thought, insurance is just one small piece of a full, financial plan or planning for retirement. And then you got into more. So I know today we want to talk about risks in retirement. Talk a little bit about some of these risks. I know that, when you think about retirement, people typically think, I put my money in the market. Well, that could be risky, right?
Oh, exactly. I talk about the four colors of money with new clients or new prospective clients all the time. And I refer to the money in the market as red money, meaning that it's, people invest in it for the primary reason to hope to make better returns than anywhere else, but they have to be aware and willing to accept risk as on the other side of the equation. I like to talk about the 5 risks of retirement. There's market risk, which you're referring to now. There's tax risk. There's longevity risk, interest rate and inflation risk, and one more big risk is the lack of planning for long-term care.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to touch on all of those because obviously you can probably do a weekend seminar on this and still not be going past scratching the surface. But let's talk just a little bit more about that market risk because it sounds to me like when money is in the market, you said it's red money because it's kind of like almost stop or be careful or because of that volatility. You turn the news on every day and you see the stock market's just up, down, and all around. How do you advise your clients to address that risk of volatility in the market?
Well, first of all, the proper diversification is really critical. Sometimes having investments in things that are non-correlated to the market on the downside. I refer to retirement planning as in 3 phases: the accumulation phase, the preservation phase, which is right at retirement, and the distribution phase, which is the most critical part. And without proper planning with diversification and having some different type of asset classes in your portfolio, you could suffer some severe damage to your retirement income if the downside happens at the wrong time, which I'll get into a little later, talking about sequence of returns and the risk of sequence of returns in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that it would be nice if we all had a crystal ball and knew when the market's going up and down, because then we'd get in and out. But we don't. So you have to take some precautionary measures. I know the other risk
Exactly.
you were talking about is tax risk, and some of these things we're talking about, these risks like market and tax and long-term care and inflation. These are things we cannot control. If we were talking about the risk of our exercise routine, well, we can just control that. We can eat better and we can exercise more. But these other risks, like taxes, we don't control those. How do you advise your clients in addressing tax risk?
Well, first of all, everyone needs to be aware and realize that tax laws change frequently. We've seen dramatic changes in the estate tax laws over the years. And right now, the holdup on the big, beautiful bill, as they talk about it, is some provisions in there about the debt, as well as the desire by one party to renew the tax cuts that happened back in 2017. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, we're going to see probably the largest tax increase in history. And clients have no control over that. So I think it's important to understand that you can't ignore taxes in your retirement. You've got to try to plan for it as best you can. One example that I give of that is something called IRMA. It has to do with Medicare. And a lot of people don't know what IRMA is all about. It's spelled IRMAA, but it has to do with the amount of income that you have in retirement versus what your Social Security benefits are going to be and the cost of Medicare. This is a problem that if you have excess income over certain limits, you could literally lose your entire Social Security benefits by being eaten up by the cost of Medicare. So we talk about that a good bit as well.
Yeah,
and that comes into
that's a
tax.
really good point.
That's part of the taxes question there, because having to pay more Medicare, it's like another tax, more tax on your Social Security.
And it kind of brings to my mind, I like that you use word pictures, like we call that red money, and when I think about, money and retirement and risk, sometimes that picture of the water bucket comes to mind with holes in it. And you can't plug up all the holes because you can never eliminate taxes or inflation, but you can mitigate and lessen them as much as possible. So with these taxes, the old joke is there's only two things, guaranteed in life: death and taxes. Well, we know taxes are there. We know we have to deal with it. And many people have money in an IRA or a 401k that's never been taxed. Well, when the tax man comes calling at certain times, you've got to deal with it. And there's just some things that you need to plan ahead of time. And I know that if a client comes to you enough ahead, you can put some good things in place to make it as lessened as possible.
Exactly. And there are ways to make your retirement income tax free. There are limited number of ways, but with proper planning and proper strategizing with clients, don't wait too late. Roth IRAs are a great way to have tax free income. Of course, everybody knows about municipal bonds, which are federally tax-free, maybe federal and state tax-free if the bonds are issued in your state. And then a little known strategy is that life insurance income can be tax-free. Talking about income while you're living on life insurance. And we can talk about that a little later.
I think that it's really interesting at this point to have this thought in mind. We're never going to talk about specific, recommendations or things because everyone is different. If you sat down with 10 people in a row and listened to what they need and gave recommendations, you would hear 10 different stories. So I think that the big thing that is really helpful for people to understand is you might hear some things, or, bond or annuity or life insurance, all these things out there, but it's what benefits you best. It's what you need, and where are you right now, and what is the end result in retirement that you're desiring, and then what would the proper plan look like to you. So some of these thoughts and ideas are just things to keep in mind, but there is never one plan that fits for every single person like a cookie cutter, right?
Never. I never have in the meetings I have every week. No meeting is exactly alike. No situation calls for the same thing.
Yeah.
I look at strategies in investing and retirement as like a golf bag with your golf clubs in it. There's a reason there's 14 different golf clubs in your golf bag.
Mm-hmm.
No one club is going to be used for everything. It'll be fit for every situation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, let's move on to another risk that you already mentioned, but what I said was these are so frustrating because you can't control them, like interest rate and inflation. So when rates go up, that could impact things like your CDs, your bonds, the stock market, all these, like a seesaw. When you push down on it, it goes up somewhere else. Talk a little bit about the risk of interest rate and inflation and how you could be prepared for that.
Well, yes, interest rates are something that's largely beyond any of our control.
Mm-hmm.
But they do they can affect your stock portfolio in a positive way or a negative way. I think they helped fuel the stock market when the interest rates were real low to a large extent. When interest rates started rising up, some stocks got hit pretty bad. And so you have to be aware of the interest rate effects on your portfolio, as well as effects of it on your income. Back 15 years ago, people were living fairly comfortably. Average income people were living fairly comfortably on their Social Security check, and they may have had $300,000 or $400,000 in the bank, earning 6 or 7% interest, which was making a big subsidy and helping them live comfortably in retirement. Well, that changed dramatically about 10 years ago, and people suddenly saw that income evaporate when interest rates went practically to zero. So you have to be aware of the effects that interest rates can have, on your portfolio and on your retirement income. Inflation risk is on the other side of the equation, and of course that's you got to have some exposure to ways to have your income, your portfolio increase in value over time to offset the effects of inflation, because it is occurring every year. Some years more than others, but if you don't plan for it, you'll be caught shortchanged on your retirement down the road.
Okay. That's a really good point. And I think that planning, when you hear the word retirement planning or planning for the future, there's so many things that I know that you would recommend. Hey, you can't plan 2 days before you retire. You've got to have some of these things in place and be looking well ahead so that you know exactly what could happen, and then you have a plan in place for that. You don't want to go, wow, inflation reared its ugly head and rates are high. What should I do? And then start planning. You should know that if and when inflation goes up and interest rates go up, here's what we will calmly do because we have this plan in place. So I think that that's some of those great points that you're bringing up there, is just being ready.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the role that an advisor plays. If you're trying to do it by yourself without professional advice, you could find yourself stepping on a booby trap.
And I know we touched on the point that there is never one plan for every single person. We know that, but let's even you brought that up, and I think it made me think of something else. So many times in our technology world that we're in today, I feel like people just go to technology and Google and go, oh, what should I do about? Oh, should I invest in? Oh, the market is doing this. What should I do? You'll get 4,327 trillion answers and get so confused. So that's where sitting down with someone like yourself that can say, okay, here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. Here's all the factors that we know about. Now, let's see if this fits right. How would this make you feel? So I think that's the big thing, is having someone that you can trust and sit down with, rather than listening to all that noise that could really confuse you.
Well, that's where the fiduciary advisor comes into play, because as a
Hmm.
fiduciary, we're committed to always doing what's in the client's best interest. That's the fiduciary rule, as opposed to the suitability rule, which doesn't hold to that high of a standard.
Hmm.
So, yes, I very much agree with what you just said there, and it is important that people, you know, I think it's really helpful and I think it is helpful to get an third party fiduciary opinion
Hmm.
about what they're doing right now, what could be better, how it could be made better.
And I know a lot of times people hear a word like fiduciary and, oh, I'll take care of you, but there's actually a compliance and legal responsibility that holds advisors like yourself to, where if you give advice that's not beneficial to someone, it could come back on you. So not only do you want to do
Yeah,
the right thing because it's the right thing, but you're held to that fiduciary responsibility. So when clients are working with a fiduciary advisor, they know that they're getting some good, solid advice.
exactly. It's called the best interest rule, and
Hmm.
it came into strong compliance and enforcement several years ago, and you got to be. You don't have a choice if you're a fiduciary. You have to comply with it.
Yep. You mentioned another risk of longevity risk. And I know it sounds kind of strange to go, hey, we're living longer and that's a risk. Well, yes, we are taking better care of ourselves. We're exercising better, eating better, have better health care. So that means that we're living longer. I know back in the 40s or 50s, the life expectancy tables for financial planning and retirement showed people retiring, at a much, or living past retirement at a much lower age than it is now. Talk a little bit about the risks that living longer brings.
Oh wow! Well, there's something like over 150,000 or 200,000 centenarians in this country right now. People over 100
Wow.
years old. Uh, when I started out on the life insurance side of the equation in the fitness profession many years ago, we didn't run illustrations past about age 90. And if you
Hmm.
had a permanent life insurance policy and you made it to 90, they cashed you out.
Oh my.
Now, modern life insurance policies are designed to carry as far out as age 120, and that's all a credit to medical science, and it's keeping us alive longer. Doesn't mean we're not needing less surgeries, but but most of us are living longer. And if you hadn't planned for that, if you hadn't planned for the effects of inflation, and then some other planning for some other unexpected things, you could run out of money well before your demise.
Yep. That's the point right there that I was thinking correctly is, yeah, you're living longer, but ooh, did you plan the right way? Do you have enough money? So make sure that, well ahead of the day you punch that last clock and say, I'm retiring, make sure that you have put that plan into place to have enough money to last to and through retirement. And, you mentioned long-term care, and I know that there's some statistics saying that a huge percentage of us at some point we'll need some kind of long-term care. Talk a little bit about how that risk should be factored into planning.
Well, we all deal with, insuring this, insuring that, insuring the boat, insuring the car, insuring the house, a lot of which is required, of course. But the biggest, most probable, likely to happen risk is that most of us are going to need some sort of care at some point in our lives if we don't pass away due to some dread disease or accident like my father was in an automobile. And I mean, like the chances of a couple, one spouse of a couple needing long-term care this day and time is like 75%, versus the chances of your house burning down is like in the single digits. And yet a lot of people just don't realize that risk is there, and the cost is the care, not the not of reinsuring the risk, but the cost of paying for that risk out of your own pocket is enormous, and it can literally destroy your retirement if you don't make provisions for it some way or the other. And I tell clients all the time, it's your choice whether you decide to reinsure the risk and buy some sort of long-term care coverage in some shape or form, or do it yourself. But just make sure you make provisions one way or the other, because if you don't, it can devastate your retirement.
Yeah, and like we've said, oh, go ahead.
To that end, I offer every potential client a complimentary analysis of their retirement picture with a state-of-the-art retirement analysis program that I purchased a number of years ago. It's been updated many times to keep up with the times. And it shows scenarios of what inflation can do to your retirement based upon your current planning.
That's amazing.
What long-term care can do to your retirement if it happens to you or to your spouse if you're married, and what its lack of estate planning can do to your retirement in the event of your death, and without proper liquidity. So it's a great program, and most people just about everybody we do it for is like amazed at it. And frankly, about 85% of the time, most people find out they got a problem they didn't realize. Yeah.
But if you have that problem you didn't realize and you do that well ahead of time, you can make some plans. So I think that's a wonderful place to stop here, Leslie, and say, hey, if someone is thinking about some of these risks we've talked about and said, I wonder how they impact my retirement, what's the best way that they can reach out to you and learn more and get that complimentary analysis?
Well, they can reach us by phone at the following number, 478-329-0339, or they can email us at Leslie, Leslie, at retirebydesign.com. Either way.
Excellent.
They can also visit my website. They can also visit my website at retirebydesign.com.
retirebydesign.com, and I'll make sure to put that link in the show notes so that people can click right on it and visit your website. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.